We get out to the CarX Tire and Auto Guest Hotline and say hi to J-Mac. He's brought to you by the ComEd Energy Efficiency Program, partnering with your biz to save money and energy. 10 straight losses. You guys going to be talking about a win on Sunday?
Man, I hope so, man. But the outlook is like the forecast today, gloomy.
Not good. What do they get by changing coordinators and offensive play callers at this point, Jason?
I mean, realistically, he can't, offensive coordinator Thomas Brown, he can't reinvent the offense because the offense is what it is. It's what has been installed throughout minicamp, throughout training camp, OTAs, and et cetera. So it's not like he can make a wholesale change because if he tries to in a week, it isn't going to work. It's going to push us even further back. And we already know how bad we are right now, not scoring a touchdown in the last 2 weeks. So, I think it's going to be more of what we heard from the press conference, just finding ways to scheme guys open, finding ways to get the ball in the hands of your playmakers, really being sharp in critical situations. We've seen they haven't been really good on third downs. They haven't been good in short yardage. Obviously, we haven't been in the red zone as much, so we haven't been in the red zone either. So I know he's going to try to clean those things up, but the main thing that I think he has to do is, and one thing that I think probably has been lacking, as we heard from Keenan Allen yesterday, the comments he made about Shane Waldron's coaching style, is you got to really hold your young quarterback accountable. I mean, you really do. Like when he's not taking the layups to check downs, you have to be on him. You got to tell him, Caleb, take the check down. You have to take it. You got to hold him accountable to a high standard because if you don't, well, you're going to see sloppy play and things that we've seen. You're going to see him holding the ball, trying to push the ball downfield, taking sacks. So, it's one thing to have all the sack totals, but it's also, it's on the team as a whole, but it's also on Caleb, in certain situations. And he even admits that holding the ball too long, trying to make the big play instead of taking the easy play.
Well, does Caleb have a medical background? Because if he can get his tackles healthy, I think he's got a chance of being somewhat successful out there. How important is it to get the two bigs back?
It's huge. It's huge, man, when you have, two of your starters who've played a lot of ball. Obviously, Braxton has played a lot of ball. Darnell Wright has started his whole entire rookie year. So anytime you get those guys back, especially when an offensive line that only dressed 7 guys last week and then you were down to 6, Tevin Jenkins getting hurt, it's huge. It's huge. And I know Caleb he'll feel more comfortable in the pocket having his 2 starting tackles back. So it's going to make Thomas Brown's life easier. I know him and Coach Morgan are in the lab right now trying to figure out ways to shore up protection because Green Bay is going to bring it. And if you're not protecting, if you're not on your P's and Q's, you're not communicating and playing on one accord, well, then you're going to get embarrassed.
What's the counter here to what the Bears are seeing from opposing defenses, Jason? And that is a lot of those 5-man looks and just trying to confuse Caleb pre-snap, like who's coming, who's not, and then you're seeing a lot of press man on the outside. So what's the counter to that if you're going in?
Yeah, a lot of press man, so it's really a lot of man coverage, cover one, where it's one safety high. Your receivers got to win. And, there's also, like I talked about, it works hand in hand. There's a lot of times where Caleb's ready to throw the ball, but there's no separation from the receivers. So the receivers got to focus on running their routes, especially in a one-on-one situation, in a press man situation. You got to get off the line of scrimmage and beat your one-on-one. And Caleb has to understand that it's timing and rhythm, and you have to get the ball there because, they're always going to try to bring one more than we can block, or they're going to try to confuse you with coverage and make you pat that ball one extra time. And that 1 or 2 extra pats of the ball will result in a sack. So, hopefully the receivers get on one accord with Caleb, win their one-on-one matchups and get open so he can deliver the ball on time and beat press coverage, something that we've seen here the past few weeks.
Did we overestimate just how dynamic this receiving room could be? How is it that not a single one of them is trending for 1,000 yards this year?
Yeah, I would have never have thought that, with DJ, who's had success regardless of who's been playing quarterback throughout his entire career. And then, Keenan Allen, the success he's had his entire career, even though he's a little bit older. And then the potential of Rome. And then you have another guy, playmaker Cole Kmet, who's been non-existent in the offense. It's shocking. It really is. And when you look at it, Caleb, we talked about all offseason, like, he was drafted in the best situation of all the rookies, right? But you see Bo Nix making plays. We saw Jaden Daniels up close making plays. We just got beat by Drake May. He's making plays. So it's hard to fathom why this offense hasn't been more explosive or been able to put more points on the board. And, you can say a lot of that Shane Waldron. I know he took the brunt of it, but at the same time, it goes back on the players executing whatever play is called and playing with energy and emotion. And that's one thing that we haven't seen from this offense, not just the offense, from the entire team. From my vantage point on the sideline in a long time is the energy, the enthusiasm, the passion, the motivation to go out there and to actually put forth your best effort.
I think Lovey was 8-11, if I have the stat right, against the Packers, which is about as successful as we've seen in the last 30 years. Any NFL coach. I mean, and you were a part of a lot of that, and I think the math checks out on that, right? 9 years for Lovey, and then plus the playoff game. So I think that's right. I think it's 8-11. Boy, I mean, we'd kill for that right now. 8-11. That's below 500. We'd kill for that right now, Jason.
Yeah, without a doubt. It was just a different. A different type of locker room. I question in that locker room, and I'm not in there, but, who's the voice of reason? Who's the voice when that voice speaks, who's listening? And the thing is, right, I hear a lot of guys talking, but who's really listening? And you can't be that voice if you're not doing everything right. You can't be that voice if you're not making plays. You can't be that voice if you're not staying after practice, watching extra film, putting in extra work in the weight room, if you're not doing the right thing. So, I question who's that voice. I think Jalen Johnson can be that voice. He puts in a lot of work. Every day in training camp, I saw Jalen Johnson staying after practice. He was the last one off the field, despite getting a big contract. So, it's just a matter of who's going to lead and actually who's going to put their, the team on their back and try to will them to a win against a tough opponent who, like you mentioned, we haven't had success against in a long time.
Unbelievable. 10 straight losses. The December 2018, the clincher, when Matt Nagy was here in that 2018 year, that's the last win against Green Bay. It's wild. You mentioned Keenan Allen's comments about, what was maybe lacking from Shane Waldron. It goes all the way back to OTAs and things like that. Whose responsibility is it, Jason, if players are noticing that? Is it another coach? Is it the head coach? Is it the players themselves? Why did that maybe go unattended for so long if they knew back in the spring and summer that Shane wasn't doing enough to really get those guys focused on offense?
Yeah, it starts with Shane. I mean, he's the head of the offense, so it starts with him, and then it trickles down to your position coach. So if the receivers are out there and they're not running their routes at the proper depth or they're not running on full speed, well, then it starts with Shane Waldron. He's got the position coaches has got to reinforce that while they're watching film, and then it trickles down to the captains if they're still not listening. It's just unacceptable. If we're out here at practice each and every day and we're dropping passes because we're not focused, receivers are not running the routes at the proper depth, receivers misaligned, running backs not hitting their aiming points, the protection, we're blocking the wrong guys and not picking up stunts and twists. It's unacceptable. And as a coordinator and as a head coach, you can't sit there and say, oh, we'll get it on Wednesday. Well, you won't get it on Wednesday because you don't get it on Wednesday, you ain't going to get it on Sunday. And if you don't get it on Sunday, we're going to get embarrassed like we just did against a rebuilding New England Patriots team. So it starts at the top with Shane Waldron, who's the head of that offense, but it also goes all the way up to Coach Eberflus. You can't let things slide because if you do, guys will take advantage of it.
All right, hopefully it's better this week. We'll see. Feels like Custer's last stand here. I don't know what it's going to look like, but we'll find out Sunday. We'll be listening. Thanks, Jason. We'll talk to you next week.
All right, thanks, guys. Have a good week.
You too, brother. We'll see you. There's Jason McKie. He'll be part of our network coverage on the sidelines with Joni Eckenthaler for Bears and Packers. We told you earlier in the week, this losing streak stretches back now all the way to the start of the 2019 campaign. Matt LaFleur has never lost to the Bears. Unbelievable. They've lost 10 straight. That's tied for the longest losing streak in the history of the rivalry. The Bears also lost 10 straight from October 31st, 1994. Yes, the monsoon game, the Halloween game, all the way until December 27, 98. It was finally snapped after Walter's passing. The following November, the Bears played 2 late season games like they will that year against the Green Bay Packers. The first game was November 7th of 99. Brian Robinson blocked the extra point in Lambeau Field, and the Bears snapped that 10-game losing streak. But not only have they lost 10 straight, they failed to cover the spread in any of those. 0-10 against spread. And I'll reiterate what I said earlier in the week. If you're not a gambler and you're like, well, what the hell does that matter? I would only emphasize that because it speaks volumes about how crummy they've been, even relative to the Las Vegas expectation. And I think that is important to note. Had they had a 10-game losing streak, look, it would suck, right? We'd be miserable.
Yeah.
But if they were like 8-2 against the spread in those games, you'd be like, well, okay, maybe a couple bad breaks.
Still making money.
And Well, I'm not even
Right.
worried about that, Yerk. I don't even consider that. I'm just talking about, like, they would have
Competitiveness?
been, yes, thank you. They would have been beating expectation. Forget if you even gamble or not. That's not even what I mean. It's so awful that in a rivalry game, in a division game, I mean, how many teams go through 10-game losing streaks within their division? That's hard to do.
That's tough to do.
Not only that, you have been miserable relative to the expectation. So forget about whether you bet or not, or you gambled on it, or you made money. Like, if at least they were 7-3 against 8-2 against the spread, you'd say, well, they were competitive and maybe a few bad breaks, and yeah, Aaron Rodgers was just better, yada, yada, yada. They haven't even been competitive. Some of those numbers were like Green Bay -7.5, Green Bay -11, Green Bay -9.5. They're not covering those spreads. You're not even beating expectation when you're a double-digit underdog. And that, to me, is what is so incredibly disheartening about this streak that they have going against this team. And I'm telling you, like, I don't know, you tell me. You played on good teams. And so, you imagine being on a team that lost 10 straight to a division opponent?
No.
No. Ever, right?
No.
I mean, it's incredible.
0. Yeah.
Incredible that you'd have this kind of losing streak against a division foe. These are teams you know well. These are teams that nobody should have to get you up for these games.
Right.
This is Bears Packers.
You should be able to get up.
It's completely insane and disheartening that, like, this is what we have to talk about. This is what they've given us. A 10-game losing streak where they've just gotten their little guys kicked in over and over and over again. It's sickening.